Thank you for thank you very much for hosting me today. Um, my comments are going to try to focus on specifically American Muslims and some of the issues that 9/11 raised. It is well known that some American Muslims come to the United States in pursuit of economic dreams. Uh, they aspire to fulfill a sense of dignity that comes from a higher standard of living. However, as with all immigrant groups, many American Muslims bring with them dreams of liberty and justice as well. Many immigrant Muslims come to the United States with elevated expectations of liberty, justice, and for them, our country, this country, is the symbolic beacon of freedom in the world. We must recognize that other than immigrant Muslims, there is also an ever-increasing population of native-born American Muslim citizens. For these Americans, the United States, with its values of liberty and justice, is the only country they know. And for this sizable portion of the population, the moral and political values of the United States are not a matter of elective choice. They are an absolute imperative. Muslims have succeeded in becoming a significant part of the fabric of the United States, and they contribute to progress and development in this country at every level of social and industry, of society and industry. Despite popular perceptions, terrorists and fanatics are a small minority of Muslims in the United States, and these extremists rarely emerge from the Native American Muslim context. In most cases, they do not grow out of the natural processes of Native American Muslim communities. Rather, in most cases, they are outsiders that exist on the margins of American Muslim society. They cling in the margins of American Muslim society until they create the opportunity for terrorism. And terrorism, however, endangers the life and well-being of every American Muslim, as well as the population at large. Terrorism and its aftermath have the effect of dismantling and gradually obliterating American Muslim and Arab dreams of financial and political security, leave alone dreams of finding dignity and liberty in the United States. The primary effect of the frustration of these expectations and dreams is the social political alienation of our Muslim and Arab citizenry. That is why an important part of winning the war against terrorism is actively resisting and guarding against the alienation of any part of our citizenry, and we are the stronger for it. It is elementary that the more united our stand against terrorism, the more effective we will be. When it comes to the protracted war against terrorism, we can ill afford even the appearance that the United States has turned against a segment of its own citizenry. It is worth emphasizing that the Muslim and Arab citizens of the United States are an extremely valuable asset in this war against terrorism. And while terrorists desperately seek to exploit the most alienated elements of this population in furtherance of their criminal conduct, we, on the other hand, must make every effort to draft and mobilize this whole population by consistently communicating to the segment of American society that they are an integral part of what defines us as a nation and as a people. At a broader level, it is of crucial significance that we remind ourselves that our practice of democracy in the United States often has a defining impact upon the fate of democracy around the world. What we do here in the United States in terms of our democratic practices goes to the credibility of democracy at the international level. It is empirically observable that our own domestic laws and policies do promote or hurt the cause of democracy by demonstrating the willingness of the world's largest democracy to live by democratic principle even when seriously challenged. If our conduct appears to betray the principles of democracy, dictatorships jump on this to impeach the credibility of democratic systems at large and justify despotism. I have observed this unfold in international media venues. Typically, apologists for dictatorships produce a list of alleged civil rights abuses that take place in the United States, and then use this list to argue that American demands for democracy around the world, and especially the Middle East, are just hypocritical and politically motivated posturing. That is why, in assessing the aftermath of 9/11, in the interest of time, I will highlight and I elaborate in my report upon this several areas of concern. One is the practice of summary detention. I think it is fair to say that American Muslims understand that the immigration laws of the United States need to be implemented and implemented faithfully. In fact, the general feeling is that American Muslims are assured and rendered more secure by a faithful implementation of the immigration laws of the United States. However, there is a perception in the American Muslim community that summary detentions are at times practiced against category of so-called material witnesses, sometimes on unclear grounds, sort of motivated by an attitude of when in doubt, detain first and figure out the grounds later. I think this, and I elaborate on this in the report, is something that needs our careful attention. Second major area of concern is the use of secret evidence. As I talk about in the report, in several cases, the use of secret evidence turns out to be badly in need of extrajudicial scrutiny. Sometimes the difficulty damages the credibility of the legal system by feeding into conspiracy theories and fears about religiously or ethnically based persecution. At times, the mistakes in use of secret evidence are technical, in fact, sometimes silly, like using, for instance, relying on a wrong name of an organization like Jama'at al-Islamiyya or instead of Jama'at al-Islamiyya. I'm out of time, so I'm going to quickly summarize a couple of other areas of concern. One that emerges from practice, and that is the concern of moving detainees around without an apparent logic for this constant moving around of detainees. A practice like this has troubled the American Muslim community because it cuts off these detainees from their support group, their family, and also weakens their ability to receive effective assistance of counsel, and adds to the image, to the perception that the government is mostly concerned about winning rather than achieving justice. Another area of serious concern that has left a huge impression upon the American Muslim community is the so-called practice of proxy torture, or the refoulement of detainees to countries in which they would be tortured. This, of course, is in violation of our own obligations under treaty law, under both the Torture Convention and the Refugee Conventions. However, as a well-publicized recent case that I worked on involving a Canadian citizen who was sent to Syria and tortured for about a year before deported from the United States, emphasized that practice has been devastating on the credibility of the legal and the political system, and is something that I think needs to be addressed. In conclusion, and there are several other points that I talk about in more detail, I fully recognize that 9/11 and its aftermath challenged our society, and in fact, the whole world in profound and fundamental ways. It bears emphasis, however, that the war with terrorism is a war of propaganda. Terrorists seek to contaminate the world with a sense of cynicism about all moral and democratic values. Terrorists, through acts of violence and provocation, seek to convince the world that democracies are not morally superior to totalitarian and despotic systems that terrorists believe in and espouse. In the war against terrorism, we need to preserve the moral integrity and credibility of democracies. And we also need to ensure the loyalty and trust of all the segments that constitute the rich fabric of our pluralist society. Addressing the concerns raised in my report go a long way towards maintaining unity and liberty for all and towards winning the war against terrorism itself. And thank you.